The Great Pyramid stands as a silent testament to a forgotten global network. This video uncovers the legacy of ancient engineers, a body of knowledge that traveled across continents long before empires rose to power. You will learn how groundbreaking ideas in mathematics, astronomy, and construction were shared between seemingly isolated cultures, creating a foundation that shaped our entire world. How did the same architectural principles appear on opposite sides of the planet? What lost technologies allowed them to move mountains of stone? The answers reveal a prehistoric world far more connected than we ever knew. What does this shared past suggest about our own interconnected future? This shared intellectual heritage was a silent currency, far more valuable than gold or gems. When we speak of knowledge that traveled, we are not talking about simple trinkets changing hands. We refer to the profound exchange of entire systems of thought. Imagine the precise mathematics needed to align a temple with the stars, or the advanced understanding of materials required to build a structure that defies millennia. These were not independently invented secrets. They were core concepts, a foundational toolkit of engineering principles, architectural designs, and scientific understanding that somehow leaped across continents. Cultures separated by vast oceans and imposing mountain ranges, peoples who supposedly never met, were building with the same underlying genius. How does the same complex formula for calculating the weight of a stone block appear in two different hemispheres? How does an identical method for creating earthquake-resistant walls show up in civilizations a world apart? This points to a transfer of ideas so fundamental it shaped the very bedrock of early human achievement. It was an ancient internet of innovation, a slow but steady web of technological progress connecting humanity long before the first empire was even conceived. The movement of these ideas across such expansive and varied landscapes seems impossible without some form of connection. The truth is, our ancestors were linked by sophisticated networks we are only beginning to understand. These ancient pathways were the original information superhighways, long before the Silk Road was even named, a sprawling web of trails connected distant worlds. Picture a merchant caravan not just laden with silks and spices, but carrying something far more precious in the minds of its travelers. They moved through scorching deserts, over perilous mountain passes, and across unpredictable seas. These routes were the veins, and the lifeblood coursing through them was pure, practical knowledge. A trader from the Indus Valley might share a system of standardized weights with a contact in Mesopotamia. A skilled artisan migrating with a group could carry the mental blueprint for a revolutionary water-lifting device. This was not merely the trade of objects, but the transfer of entire systems of thought. We see the proof in the artifacts. The same unit of measurement, the cubit, appears in ancient Egypt and later in structures across the Mediterranean. The concept of the arch, a brilliant solution for distributing weight, emerges in seemingly separate cultures. This was cross-pollination on a global scale. A building technique perfected with limestone in one region could be adapted for granite in another, improved upon through local ingenuity. The evidence is etched into stone itself, waiting for us to decipher the connections. These massive stones scattered across the globe tell a silent, unified story. On the windswept plains of Britain, Stonehenge rises with its iconic trilithons. Far across the world, the enigmatic Moai statues of Easter Island stare inland from their volcanic slopes, and in Turkey, the carved pillars of Göbekli Tepe, built over 10,000 years ago, predate all of them. What connects these distant sites is not just the scale of the stones, but the shared genius required to move them. Each culture, seemingly isolated, solved the same monumental puzzle. They mastered the quarrying of multi-ton blocks, developed methods for transportation across impossible distances, and perfected techniques for erecting them with breathtaking precision. The solutions they found are eerily similar. The use of log rollers, levers, and earthen ramps appears in accounts and archaeological evidence from multiple continents. This was not a case of independent invention stumbling upon the same idea. It feels more like different classrooms using the same textbook. The knowledge of how to manipulate the Earth itself, to harness physics against immense weight, was a technology that traveled. How did this happen? The most likely answer lies in the people themselves. Artisans and master builders were the original knowledge workers. Their skills were their most valuable possession, and they carried them across land and sea. A stonemason from one region could find employment and prestige in another, bringing his entire mental toolkit with him. This transfer of practical, applied engineering created a common foundation. But the connection runs even deeper than mere technique. These megalithic sites are often aligned with celestial events. Stonehenge marks the solstices. The faces of the Easter Island Moai are positioned with specific intentionality. The carvings at Göbekli Tepe hint at a complex symbolic universe tied to the stars. This suggests the shared knowledge was not just about how to build, but why. A foundational understanding of the cosmos, a belief system that saw humanity's place within a larger celestial order, may have been the true blueprint. This spiritual and astronomical knowledge could have been the most precious cargo of all, guiding the placement of every stone and unifying these ancient endeavors across the vast expanse of the prehistoric world. The stars were the original blueprint. Ancient engineers were also master astronomers, a fact etched into the very stones they raised. Across the globe, from the dense jungles of Central America to the arid plains of Egypt, we find structures that double as sophisticated observatories. The Maya built pyramids that precisely track the movements of Venus. The Great Pyramid of Giza is famously aligned with the North Pole with an accuracy that still baffles experts. In Ireland, the passage tomb of Newgrange captures the rising winter solstice sun, flooding its inner chamber with a narrow beam of light for just a few minutes each year. This was not mere stargazing. This celestial knowledge was a practical technology, essential for survival and societal order. It dictated when to plant and when to harvest, creating the agricultural surplus that allowed civilizations to flourish. It guided navigators across trackless seas and deserts. It formed the core of religious and ceremonial life, linking human rulers to the divine order of the cosmos. The truly compelling mystery is not that these cultures watched the sky, but that they watched it in such similar ways. The development of complex calendar systems, the identification of the same planetary cycles, the precise mathematical calculations of eclipses, these achievements appear in cultures separated by vast oceans. The odds of such specific knowledge being independently invented in complete isolation are astronomically low. This points to a circulating body of knowledge, a shared scientific tradition that moved along the same routes as architectural techniques. The stars provided a universal, unchanging reference point, a common language that could be understood anywhere on Earth. This shared celestial wisdom became the ultimate foundation for engineering. It dictated the orientation of a temple, the layout of a city, and the very scale of a monument. To build with the Earth, one first had to understand the heavens. The precision we marvel at in ancient structures is a direct reflection of their profound astronomical insight. a global conversation written in stone and aligned with the infinite. This mastery of the heavens was matched only by their command of the Earth's most vital resource. Water was the lifeblood of civilization, and ancient engineers met its challenge with breathtaking ingenuity. Their solutions to this universal problem show a pattern of shared understanding that spanned the globe. Consider the Qanat systems of ancient Persia. These were not simple wells, but vast underground tunnels, sometimes stretching for miles, that tapped into mountain aquifers. They used the simple, unerring force of gravity to guide water to the surface in the middle of arid plains, creating oases in the desert. Now travel across the world to the Maya in the sweltering jungles of Mesoamerica. Here, engineers constructed intricate networks of canals and causeways, transforming seasonal swamps into incredibly productive raised fields. These elevated plots of land, surrounded by water channels, were naturally irrigated and fertilized, creating agricultural powerhouses. How is it that cultures separated by entire oceans both developed such sophisticated, gravity-fed water systems? The principles are nearly identical: a deep, practical knowledge of hydrology and geology. This was not about inventing the wheel twice. It was about applying the same fundamental engineering principles to different environments. This shared knowledge of water management was arguably the most critical legacy of these early engineers. It was the key that unlocked the potential of the land. A reliable water supply meant that populations could grow beyond the capacity of scattered villages. It meant food security, which in turn allowed for social specialization. Not everyone had to farm. Artisans, priests, administrators, and yes, more engineers could be supported. This technological foundation provided the stability necessary for early states to form and flourish. The very existence of our first great urban centers, from the Middle East to the Americas, was made possible by this circulated genius for controlling water. The mastery of stone and water finds its parallel in the transformative power of fire. The ability to extract metal from rock and forge it into tools fundamentally reshaped the ancient world. This was not a simple discovery, but a complex science that spread with surprising speed. The first breakthrough was smelting copper, a process requiring precise control of high temperatures in a specially designed furnace. But the true revolution came with bronze, a material far stronger and more durable than its components. Creating bronze is an alchemical feat, demanding the combination of copper and tin in exact proportions, often with the aid of other minerals called fluxes to purify the mix. This intricate knowledge does not simply appear in isolated pockets. Within a strikingly short period, bronze technology emerges almost simultaneously in the workshops of Mesopotamia, the sophisticated cities of the Indus Valley, and the burgeoning dynasties of China. Such a coordinated technological leap across vast distances strongly implies a shared source, a circulated recipe for this revolutionary alloy. The secret of bronze was a form of high technology, a tangible advantage that could determine the fate of entire communities. With superior bronze tools, artisans could carve stone with greater precision, and farmers could clear land more efficiently. With bronze weapons, armies gained a decisive edge. This shared metallurgical knowledge accelerated progress on a continental scale, fueling advances in construction, agriculture, and social organization. The control of metal became the ultimate strategic resource, a powerful currency that traded not in coins, but in the very capacity to build and defend a civilization. The true secret behind these immortal structures is a language of numbers. Ancient engineers wielded mathematics as their most potent tool, a silent code embedded in stone. Look beyond the sheer mass of a pyramid to the angles of its corners, the precise orientation of its passages. These were not happy accidents. They were the product of deliberate and sophisticated calculations. The same geometric principles, like the golden ratio, appear in the Parthenon's graceful columns and in the very proportions of the Great Pyramid. This was not about simple counting. It was about using ratios and geometry to achieve both structural stability and breathtaking beauty. The mathematics ensured that a temple would not collapse under its own weight, and that its form would resonate with a deep, almost universal sense of harmony. How did such complex ideas travel? The evidence lies in the numbers themselves. The base 60 system, developed in ancient Mesopotamia, gave us our 60-minute hour and 360-degree circle. This system did not remain a local secret. Its influence spread, shaping astronomy and measurement across the ancient world. This points to a shared mathematical foundation, a common toolkit of formulas and functions that master builders carried with them. This knowledge was the invisible blueprint, the essential framework that made monumental construction possible. Without this shared language of numbers, coordinating the labor of thousands, calculating the volumes of stone, and aligning structures with the stars would have been an impossible task. The stones themselves are the final proof, a permanent record of calculations made millennia ago, the ultimate blueprint for building eternity. The same blueprints seem to appear in stone across the ancient world. Architectural forms and city layouts that should be unique to one culture instead surface in another, separated by continents and oceans. Consider the ziggurat, the great terraced pyramid that defined the skyline of Mesopotamian cities like Ur. Then look to the step temples rising from the jungles of Mesoamerica. The fundamental design is strikingly similar, a monumental staircase reaching for the heavens. How did this specific architectural template emerge in two such distant worlds? Another profound parallel is the corbelled arch. This was a brilliant structural solution, where each successive layer of stone is cantilevered slightly inward until the walls meet at the top, creating a stable triangular vault. We find this identical technique in the grand tombs of Mycenaean Greece, and then, thousands of miles away, in the sophisticated structures of the ancient Maya. This is more than a simple coincidence of form. It points to a shared understanding of load-bearing physics, a circulated solution to the universal problem of holding up a heavy roof. These were not just similar shapes, they were identical engineering strategies. The evidence for this shared knowledge becomes even clearer when we examine the very bricks they used. In the Indus Valley and later in the Roman Empire, we find a move toward standardized brick sizes and modular construction. This was a revolutionary concept. It meant that bricks were interchangeable, that buildings could be erected from pre-planned units, and that large-scale projects could be managed with unprecedented efficiency. This shift from unique, hand-fitted stones to standardized components suggests a pool of common design principles, a universal toolkit for organized construction. These templates became the signature of emerging civilizations, a visual language of power and permanence that somehow everyone seemed to understand. That silent revolution in construction technology was built from the ground up, with the very dust beneath their feet. While the Romans are celebrated for their world-changing concrete, the origins of this chemical magic are far older and more mysterious. Deep within the Great Pyramid, for instance, analysis has revealed that some of the massive blocks were not quarried stone at all. They were cast in place using a form of early concrete made from local limestone, clay, and water. This was not simple mud brick. This was a sophisticated binder, a manufactured stone. At the same time, thousands of miles away in the Indus Valley cities like Mohenjo-Daro, builders were using something equally advanced. Their mortar was a complex recipe of gypsum and bitumen, creating a waterproof seal that has endured for millennia. The secret to these materials was not just the ingredients, but the chemical reaction they triggered. By mixing specific reactive aggregates, these ancient engineers created a crystalline structure that could harden even underwater. This is the principle behind what we call hydraulic concrete, a technology we thought was a Roman invention. Possessing this recipe was like holding the key to immortality for stone. It allowed for the construction of harbors that could resist the relentless sea, aqueducts that would not leak, and monuments that could truly stand the test of time. This knowledge was a form of high alchemy, transforming common earth into eternal structures. The movement of such a specific chemical formula across continents suggests a shared and profoundly advanced understanding of material science. This was not a trade in finished goods, but the transfer of an entire chemical process, a silent revolution that literally cemented the foundations of the ancient world. Mastery of the sea was the ultimate engineering challenge. To move knowledge across continents, ancient peoples first had to conquer the vast, trackless oceans. This required more than just sturdy boats. It demanded a profound understanding of the natural world as a living map. The Polynesian voyages are a stunning example. They ventured across thousands of miles of open Pacific, navigating not by compass or sextant, but by reading a symphony of natural signs. They memorized the precise paths of hundreds of stars. They understood how ocean swells, deflected by distant islands, created unique patterns on the water's surface. They could interpret the specific types of clouds that form over land and even follow the flight paths of homing birds. This was a high science of perception, a mental cartography that turned the entire Pacific into a familiar highway. This navigational prowess was itself a sophisticated form of engineering, the engineering of travel. It was a system built on observation, memorization, and the precise application of knowledge passed down through generations. This same intellectual skill was needed to create the first maps. While we might imagine detailed paper charts, many early maps were likely mental or symbolic, etched into wood or woven into tapestries. They encoded crucial information about coastlines, safe harbors, and fresh water sources. The very act of map-making required a grasp of scale, direction, and relative geography, a mathematical understanding of space. The sharing of these navigational techniques and charts would have been the most valuable currency of all. A sea captain would not trade his map for gold, but he might exchange its secrets with a fellow master navigator in a distant port. This direct, person-to-person transfer of how to traverse the globe was the essential first step. It established the long-distance contacts, the reliable routes, that then allowed every other form of knowledge to flow. The secrets of metallurgy, the blueprints for water systems, the formulas for concrete, all of it traveled along these pathways first blazed by the world's original explorers. Their mastery of the seas was the key that unlocked the entire system of global exchange. Human movement was the engine of this ancient knowledge transfer. When entire populations picked up and migrated, they did not travel light. They carried with them a complete cultural operating system, a deep well of practical knowledge honed over generations. Think of groups like the so-called Sea Peoples, whose movements across the Mediterranean around 1200 BC are etched in the records of collapsing empires. Or the vast, gradual expansions of Indo-European-speaking peoples. These were not just armies or raiders, they were living, breathing repositories of technology. A migrating clan included the blacksmith who knew the exact temperature to temper a sword, the carpenter who understood how to join wood for a seaworthy vessel, and the master builder who held the mental plans for a fortified wall. This was knowledge on the move, embedded in the minds and muscle memory of people. We can trace this diffusion through artifacts that appear like breadcrumbs along their routes. The Revolutionary War chariot, a complex machine requiring expertise in wheel-making, metallurgy, and animal husbandry, spread across Eurasia not as a lone idea, but as part of a whole package of technologies carried by migrating groups. The same is true for distinctive styles of pottery, metalwork, and even domestic architecture. A new type of house, a new way to forge a bronze spearhead. These were the signatures of a people on the move, slowly embedding their genius into the lands they settled. This was not a sudden invasion of ideas, but a slow, demographic weaving. Over generations, through intermarriage and cultural exchange, these imported skills became part of the local fabric. The migrant's child would teach the local artisan, and a new, hybrid form of knowledge would emerge, richer and more adaptable than before. This constant, slow churn of humanity was what wove the earliest tapestry of shared human experience, stitching continents together with threads of practical wisdom long before anyone drew a map of the world. These maritime empires turned the sea from a barrier into a bridge. The Phoenicians and the Minoans did not simply sail from one coast to another, they wove together entire worlds. Their vessels were floating universities, carrying not just amphorae of wine and ingots of copper, but the living minds of artisans, engineers, and scribes. A single trading voyage could transplant a master metalworker from the Levant to the shores of North Africa, or bring a Greek mathematician into contact with the astronomical records of Egypt. This was the transfer of genius in real time. The most profound innovation they carried was perhaps the most portable, the Phoenician alphabet. This was a revolutionary technology of thought, a system of simple symbols that could record any spoken language with unprecedented ease. It was not guarded as a state secret, but spread like wildfire across the Mediterranean ports, adopted and adapted by the Greeks and others. This portable script became the new vessel for knowledge itself, allowing complex ideas about engineering, astronomy, and law to be written down, copied, and shipped wherever their ships could sail. But their own ships were also a marvel to be shared. The Phoenician galley, with its sleek hull and reinforced keel, was a masterpiece of naval architecture. It could brave the open ocean far from the sight of land. In every foreign port, their ships were a public display of advanced technology. Local shipwrights would have seen these superior designs, understood their principles, and begun to replicate them. This is how shipbuilding knowledge circulated, not through formal treaties, but through observation and imitation in bustling harbors. These seafaring cultures were the active agents of a great acceleration. They connected the isolated dots of early civilization into a vibrant network. Through them, a new strain of drought-resistant wheat could move from the Nile Delta to the Italian peninsula. A more efficient recipe for bronze, perfected in the East, could find its way to a smithy in Iberia. The sea was their sprawling, interconnected highway, and the most valuable cargo was never listed on a manifest. It was the invisible wealth of shared understanding carried in the minds of people that truly shaped the ancient world. These sacred shapes were a universal language, a silent code that preserved the most vital engineering principles. A pyramid was never just a pile of stones. Its four sides facing the cardinal directions were a physical map of the cosmos, a statement of alignment with the fundamental forces of nature. The perfect circle of a stone ring, like Stonehenge, was a celestial calendar etched into the earth. The intricate mandalas of Hindu and Buddhist temples are not merely beautiful patterns. They are complex geometric diagrams that map the journey from the material world to the spiritual infinite. This was a profound fusion of science and belief. The same precise mathematics needed to ensure a temple wall would stand for 1,000 years was also believed to resonate with the divine order of creation. The architect and the priest were often the same person, their work a single, unified endeavor to harmonize human existence with the universe. This symbolic encoding was the ultimate preservation strategy. A technical blueprint on papyrus could be lost or decay, but a principle carved into the very form of a holy site, repeated in ritual and passed down as sacred lore, could survive for millennia. The specific ratio known as the golden section, approximately 1.618 to 1, appears in the design of the Parthenon in Greece and centuries earlier in the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is found in the proportions of Gothic cathedrals and in the layout of ancient Sanskrit texts. This was not a coincidence of aesthetics. This ratio was considered the formula for perfect harmony, a fundamental law of nature that, when used in construction, imbued a structure with both immense stability and a deep, almost subconscious beauty. The shared use of this and other geometric constants reveals a global conversation about the hidden mathematical fabric of reality. The sacred was the most durable vessel for the scientific, ensuring that the deepest engineering secrets of the ancient world were never truly lost, only waiting to be understood again. The Great Library of Alexandria was not the beginning of this story, but its grandest symbol. It represented a dream to centralize the world's knowledge, to gather every scroll and text under a single roof. Yet this famous institution was merely formalizing a process that had pulsed through human civilization for thousands of years. Long before its legendary shelves were built, informal hubs of learning were already operating as the world's first data centers. In the bustling cities of Mesopotamia, scribble schools collected and copied technical manuals on everything from irrigation to astronomy. In the temple complexes of Egypt, houses of life served as repositories for medical texts, architectural plans, and sacred geometry. These were the original nodes in the network, places where disparate streams of practical wisdom could converge. A new method for smelting metal, learned from a traveler in the north, could be combined with a local recipe for stronger mortar. An astronomical observation recorded on a clay tablet in one city could be checked against star charts brought from another. This was the process of synthesis, where raw information was refined into usable, reliable knowledge. From these hubs, the newly integrated ideas were then redistributed, copied by scribes, and carried by merchants to the farthest reaches of the known world. They processed the raw data of human experience into the fuel for civilizational growth. The Library of Alexandria was the ultimate expression of this ancient impulse, a physical monument to a system that had always thrived on connection and exchange. These guilds and societies were the ancient world's intellectual property vaults. Their secrecy was not mere paranoia, it was a system of quality control and preservation. A master stonemason did not simply teach a novice how to strike a chisel. He initiated him into a complete system of knowledge, from selecting the perfect quarry stone to understanding the complex geometry that would prevent a vault from collapsing. This master-to-apprentice chain was a living library, ensuring that irreplaceable skills survived generations, safe from the chaos of wars and the decay of empires. The most profound engineering secrets were protected not in a fortress, but in the minds of trained initiates. Yet this protected knowledge was never completely stationary. A king, desperate to build a monument that would immortalize his name, would send for a renowned master builder from a distant land. This craftsman would arrive with his entire mental toolkit, a walking repository of techniques unknown to the local laborers. He might introduce a new type of pulley system to hoist heavier blocks, or a forgotten formula for a mortar that sets underwater. His presence alone could elevate an entire region's architectural capabilities. The construction of great cathedrals in medieval Europe provides a later echo of this process. Stonemasons' guilds traveled from one building site to another, carrying their proprietary knowledge of Gothic arch design and flying buttresses across the continent. This was a controlled leak of genius, a deliberate and highly valued transfer of expertise. The guilds maintained their secrecy, but their services were in international demand. This created a powerful paradox. The very groups that most closely guarded their knowledge became primary agents for its spread across cultures. A single commissioned project could plant the seeds of a new technological tradition in a foreign land, where it would be adapted, refined, and passed down through new local guilds. They were the keepers of the flame, but they also carried the spark on long journeys, igniting new centers of innovation far from the original fire. This central puzzle divides scholars into two distinct camps. One argues for convergent evolution, the idea that different cultures facing similar problems will naturally arrive at similar solutions. It is the story of independent genius, of human intelligence flowering in isolation. Agriculture, for example, emerged separately in the Middle East, China, and the Americas. The basic human need for stable food supplies could logically lead multiple societies to domesticate plants and animals without any contact. The same logic applies to the pyramid form. A pile of stones naturally forms a stable mound, and shaping that mound into a triangular structure is one of the simplest ways to build something tall and durable. In this view, the pyramid is an obvious architectural answer to a universal human desire to reach for the sky. Yet for other technologies, the evidence for independent invention grows thin. The development of bronze is a classic example. Creating this alloy requires combining copper with tin, but copper and tin deposits are rarely found together. For a culture to invent bronze independently, it would need access to both these scattered resources and then, through sheer chance, discover the exact smelting process and the perfect proportions to create a superior metal. For this to happen nearly simultaneously in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and China stretches the limits of coincidence. The same is true for astronomy. The precise mathematical prediction of a planetary cycle like that of Venus is not an obvious discovery. It requires generations of meticulous, recorded observation. For two cultures on opposite sides of the world to independently identify the same 584-day cycle of Venus, and then both incorporate it into their sacred calendars feels less like parallel problem solving and more like two students working from the same textbook. The incredible specificity of this knowledge, the shared chemical recipes, and the identical celestial math points toward communication. This does not rob any culture of its brilliance. Instead, it paints a picture of a prehistoric world where a master artisan, having learned a revolutionary technique, could travel vast distances, his knowledge a passport that granted him entry into new realms. The truth is likely a beautiful, complex tapestry woven from both threads. Some innovations were undoubtedly local triumphs, born from unique environmental pressures. Others, particularly those involving complex, non-intuitive science, were precious cargo, passed from hand to hand and mind to mind across the ancient landscape. This was not a story of one or the other, but a continuous dance between isolated inspiration and the powerful, accelerating force of shared learning. The proof of this ancient conversation is literally etched in stone. A deep dive into the artifacts themselves reveals a hidden paper trail of exchanged ideas. Take the simple yet critical shaduf, a counterweighted device for lifting water. We find nearly identical designs depicted in the tomb paintings of ancient Egypt and described in early texts from China. This is not a shared, obvious invention like a basic lever, but a specific mechanical solution involving a weighted beam and a bucket. The precise engineering of its balance points suggests a circulated design, a solved problem that traveled. Even more compelling are the symbols used in mathematics. The concept of zero, a revolutionary abstract idea, appears as a dot in Indian Bakshali manuscripts and as a shell glyph in Mayan inscriptions. This is not about the invention of nothing, but the shared representation of a profound mathematical placeholder. These symbols are the fingerprints of a shared intellectual heritage. Inscriptions provide the smoking gun, the direct testimony from the ancient world. A cuneiform tablet from Mesopotamia might record the payment of rations to a group of foreign metalworkers from the north, explicitly bringing their alien smelting techniques to the local court. In Egypt, an official's tomb inscription boasts of his recruitment of skilled shipwrights from the land of Punt to build a new fleet of seagoing vessels. These are not vague allusions, they are direct admissions that specialized knowledge was an international commodity, actively sought and highly valued. The movement of master craftsmen was a state-sponsored endeavor, a deliberate effort to import technological advantage. Modern science now allows us to read the invisible ink in this ancient story. Through material provenance studies, we can trace the journey of a single block of stone or a copper ingot back to its original quarry or mine. When we find stones in a Mayan pyramid that were quarried hundreds of miles away, we are not just mapping a trade route for construction materials, we are mapping the route of the engineers who knew how to work that specific stone. The presence of tin from Cornwall in British bronze artifacts found in the Mediterranean confirms long-distance trade in raw materials essential for advanced technology. The material itself becomes a witness, testifying to the vast, interconnected networks that moved both objects and the knowledge of how to use them. Each artifact, from a humble clay weight to a colossal stone statue, is a single piece of a global puzzle. When we fit them together, a picture emerges not of isolated genius, but of a constant, quiet collaboration across continents. The legacy of these engineers was not just the monuments they left behind, but the very connections they forged between distant worlds. Warfare became an unexpected university for ancient engineers. The relentless demands of defense and conquest stripped away secrecy, forcing the most advanced technologies into the open. When one kingdom developed a stronger bronze alloy for spearheads, its rivals had no choice but to discover the recipe or face annihilation. The Hittite mastery of iron smelting is a perfect case study. Their ability to produce weapons that were harder and held a sharper edge than bronze ones created a military revolution. This was not a secret they could keep in a locked vault. The very existence of their superior arms on the battlefield became a loud public announcement of the technology. Neighboring kingdoms facing this new threat were compelled to respond. They would have sent spies, negotiated with defectors, or captured smiths, doing whatever it took to learn the secret of working iron. The knowledge spread not because the Hittites wished to share it, but because its military advantage was too powerful to ignore. This pattern repeated itself with the very design of cities. The concept of the fortified settlement, with its towering walls, reinforced gates, and strategically placed watchtowers, is a global phenomenon. From the massive walls of Jericho to the imposing citadels of Mycenae, we see a common architectural language of defense. This was not a case of every culture independently deciding that a tall, thick wall was a good idea. It was the circulation of proven defensive principles, the knowledge of how high a wall must be to resist scaling ladders, how thick to withstand battering rams, and how to position towers for overlapping fields of archer fire. This was hard-won intelligence that traveled along trade routes and was carried by veterans of distant wars. The most direct and often brutal method of transfer was through conquest itself. When an empire like Assyria expanded, its armies did not just plunder gold and silver. They captured the most valuable resource of all, skilled people. The artisans, armorers, and siege engineers of a defeated city were often forcibly relocated to the heart of the conquering empire. A master bowyer from one region could be set to work teaching his craft to apprentices in another. An engineer who had designed fortifications for a rival king would be compelled to reveal their weaknesses and their strengths to his new masters. This was knowledge transfer at the point of a sword, a violent and involuntary acceleration of technological exchange that shaped the destiny of empires. They literally reshaped the world to feed it. The most enduring legacy of ancient engineers is not found in grand temples, but in the very soil beneath our feet. Before a single stone of a pyramid could be laid, the land itself had to be transformed. This was a global project of agricultural engineering, a quiet terraforming that turned wild landscapes into fertile breadbaskets. In the staggering heights of the Andes, ancient farmers carved entire mountainsides into a cascade of lush, green steppes. These terraces were a masterpiece of erosion control and microclimate management. Each level captured precious rainwater, slowing its descent and allowing it to soak deep into the soil, nurturing crops like potatoes and quinoa at altitudes that should have been barren. Far across the world, in the rice paddies of Southeast Asia, we see the same principle applied to water. Vast, intricate networks of terraces turned steep hills into shimmering stairways of flooded fields, an engineered ecosystem that could produce immense caloric surpluses. This was not simple farming, this was large-scale earth-moving, a deliberate and calculated redesign of the planet's surface. How did this specific knowledge of contouring land and managing water on such a grand scale appear in civilizations an ocean apart? The answer lies in the movement of a fundamental idea, the understanding that humanity could partner with the land, not just take from it. The tool that unlocked this partnership was the plow. The invention of the animal-drawn plow was as revolutionary as the steam engine. It allowed a single farmer to cultivate land that would have taken dozens of people to prepare by hand. This single tool intensified agriculture, producing more food from the same amount of land, but the plow was useless without water. This is where hydraulic engineering became essential. From the canal networks of Mesopotamia to the reservoir systems of the Indus Valley, ancient engineers created artificial rivers, directing water across vast distances to where it was needed most. This knowledge of irrigation was a portable science. The principles of gravity fed channels and sluice gates could be applied anywhere, from the deserts of Egypt to the plains of China. The most compelling evidence for this shared agricultural knowledge, however, is in the crops themselves. The grains that built civilizations were global travelers. Wheat and barley, first domesticated in the Middle East, slowly spread across Europe and into Asia. Rice, cultivated in the river valleys of China, moved south and west, transforming the diets and destinies of entire continents. This was not just the trade of seeds, it was the transfer of an entire cultivation system. A farmer bringing rice to a new land had to bring the knowledge of how to flood the fields, when to plant, and how to control pests. This was a complete package of biological and environmental engineering. The result of this global agricultural revolution was the creation of surplus. For the first time, not every member of a society had to spend every day in the search for food. This surplus of calories created a surplus of labor. It freed up hands and minds to become masons, astronomers, scribes, and soldiers. The monumental cities and temples we marvel at were direct products of this engineered abundance. The ancient engineers did not just build with stone, they first built with soil and seed, creating the foundational wealth that made all other construction possible. That ancient legacy of problem solving is not a relic, it is the very bedrock of our modern world. The principles they discovered are so fundamental that they remain in constant use today. Consider the simple yet revolutionary Roman arch. Its genius lies in the keystone, the central wedge that locks all the others in place, transferring the immense weight of the structure down through its sides into the supporting piers. This basic concept of redirecting force is the direct ancestor of every modern suspension bridge. The steel cables of a massive bridge are performing the same essential function as the stones of an arch, channeling tremendous loads across a vast empty space. The same is true for the Egyptians' profound understanding of load distribution. The way they stacked the colossal blocks of the Great Pyramid, each layer perfectly level and evenly bearing the weight of the layers above, is a masterclass in structural integrity. Modern engineers use the exact same principle when they design the steel skeletons of skyscrapers, ensuring that the weight of 80 floors is safely transmitted down to the foundation. This is not merely a historical curiosity. It is the ongoing application of a universal physics that ancient builders mastered through observation and brilliant intuition. Our cities themselves are living museums of this ancient wisdom. The concept of organized urban planning with its logical street grids, centralized water supplies, and designated public spaces was not invented in the modern era. It was pioneered over 4,000 years ago in impeccably designed cities like Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley. There, we find wide, straight streets laid out in a precise grid, a sophisticated city-wide drainage system with covered sewers, and even uniform, baked brick houses with indoor bathrooms. By studying these ancient solutions, modern engineers gain profound insights into sustainability and durability. The way the Anasazi built their cliff dwellings in the American Southwest to utilize passive solar heating, or how the Romans used volcanic ash to create a concrete that actually hardens in seawater, these are lessons in working in harmony with the environment and creating materials that last for millennia. This enduring legacy is a powerful testament to the timelessness of good design. It proves that the most elegant and enduring solutions to humanity's greatest challenges were often discovered not through complex computer models, but through a deep, intuitive understanding of materials, mathematics, and the natural world. Despite our growing understanding, profound mysteries about this ancient network remain stubbornly unsolved. The most basic question is perhaps the most difficult to answer. How did you teach someone to move a 500-ton stone block without written manuals or modern tools? The knowledge of quarrying, transporting, and erecting megaliths was a physical, hands-on craft. It existed in the muscle memory of crews and the chance they used to coordinate their efforts. This was a form of tacit knowledge, almost impossible to fully convey without direct personal demonstration. The transfer of such a skill required the master builders themselves to travel, leading workforces on different continents for generations. Yet we have no clear records of these epic journeys, only the silent, staggering stones they left behind. Then there is the riddle of the pyramids. Why do these iconic structures rise from the deserts of Egypt and the jungles of Guatemala? Is the stepped pyramid a universal architectural instinct, the logical way to build something tall and stable? Or does its specific geometry, its precise orientation, and its frequent association with celestial observation point to a common and much older source of inspiration that somehow crossed the Atlantic Ocean? This single question challenges our entire model of prehistoric human contact. Compounding these mysteries are the frustrating disappearances. We know the Romans created a concrete that could endure for millennia and even harden in seawater, a feat we only recently rediscovered. Yet this revolutionary recipe was lost for centuries, a victim of political collapse, fractured trade routes, and the disintegration of the guilds that guarded the secret. How many other technologies have vanished from human history, their blueprints erased by time? These unanswered questions are not dead ends. They are the very fuel for a new generation of explorers. Archaeologists are now using satellite imagery to detect the faint outlines of lost settlements and roads hidden beneath forests and fields. Materials scientists are analyzing ancient concretes and metal alloys at the molecular level, hoping to reverse engineer their forgotten formulas. Marine archaeologists are recovering cargo from sunken trading vessels. Each amphora and tool chest a time capsule of what was moving across the ancient world. Every new discovery has the potential to be a keystone, the one piece that suddenly makes the entire picture snap into focus. A single shipwreck could contain the personal tools of a master engineer. A newly deciphered inscription might name a foreign architect credited with building a king's tomb. The next clue is waiting, perhaps buried in a forgotten cave, submerged in a silt-filled harbor, or even hiding in plain sight, encoded in the stones we have been studying for centuries. The great puzzle of our shared engineering past is still being assembled, one fragment at a time. This shared inheritance forces us to confront a difficult modern question. Who truly owns the legacy of ancient engineers? The pyramids of Egypt are protected as a national treasure. The Great Wall is a symbol of Chinese identity, and the Moai are sacred to the Rapa Nui people. These sites are undeniably pillars of cultural heritage, yet the knowledge that built them, the very mathematics and engineering principles, appears to have been a global commons, circulating freely long before modern borders were drawn. This creates a profound ethical tension. How do we balance the rightful stewardship of descendant communities with the understanding that this knowledge belongs to all of humanity? The very concept of exclusive national ownership begins to fray when we trace the lineage of an idea. The arch is not Roman, it is human. The concept of zero is not Indian or Mayan, it is a universal key that unlocked advanced mathematics. When a modern nation claims sole cultural possession of a technology that clearly traveled along ancient pathways, it can reinforce a narrow, nationalist view of history. It tells a story of isolated genius instead of a collaborative, cross-border endeavor that was the true engine of early innovation. This is not just an academic debate. It has real consequences for research and preservation. Strict cultural property laws can sometimes hinder international scientific cooperation. If artifacts cannot be shared for study, or if data is sequestered, our collective understanding suffers. The solution lies in a model of shared stewardship, one that prioritizes respect for local communities while acknowledging that these achievements are part of a universal human story. Descendant communities must have a leading voice in how their ancestors' legacies are managed and interpreted. Their traditional knowledge is often an invaluable part of the puzzle. At the same time, recognizing our shared engineering heritage can be a powerful antidote to modern divisions. It reminds us that our greatest accomplishments have never sprung from isolation. They are the product of connection, of countless unnamed minds exchanging ideas across mountains and seas. This ancient network of innovation is a blueprint for a different kind of future, one built not on walls but on bridges. This legacy is not locked away in history books. It is a living story, and you can become part of it. The next time you walk through a museum, try a new kind of looking. Do not just see individual artifacts from Egypt or Greece or the Americas. Look for the conversations between them. Notice the similar proportions in pottery from different continents, or the recurring geometric patterns in textiles separated by oceans. You are not just seeing isolated art, you are seeing the shared vocabulary of an ancient network. Your support can actively fuel this discovery. Consider backing archaeological research or organizations that champion open access science, ensuring that new findings are not hidden behind paywalls but become a true common heritage for everyone. The most personal way to connect is to learn a little of the language they spoke so fluently, grasping the basic principles of geometry, like how a triangle distributes weight, transforms a ruin from a pile of rocks into a masterpiece of engineering. Understanding the simple motion of the sun and stars can make the alignment of a stone circle feel like a handshake across time. This is more than just an academic exercise, it is a shift in perspective. When we internalize that our greatest achievements have always sprung from connection, not isolation, it changes how we see our own world. The challenges we face today, from climate change to resource scarcity, demand global, collaborative solutions. The ancient engineers offer us a powerful blueprint, not for building pyramids, but for building a future. They prove that by sharing knowledge across all perceived boundaries, we can accomplish the impossible. We are all the inheritors of this long and unbroken journey of innovation, and the next chapter is ours to write. Their legacy is a powerful testament to our shared beginnings. This story is not one of isolated genius, but of a world already deeply connected, where knowledge itself was the most precious cargo ever carried across deserts and seas. From the celestial maps they etched in stone to the mountains they patiently moved, these pioneers built a foundation of understanding that would support every empire that followed. Their work whispers a crucial truth, that collaboration and the open exchange of ideas have always been the true engines of human progress. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured it perfectly when he observed that we are like dwarfs standing on the shoulders of giants. We can see farther not because of our own stature, but because we are lifted by the accumulated wisdom of the past. Every modern skyscraper owes a debt to the first arch, every space probe to the first star chart. Let this exploration change how you see the world, not as a collection of separate histories, but as a single, intertwined human journey. May it inspire in you a renewed sense of wonder for the past and a hopeful vision for the collaborative future we can build together.